At the time of recording for this specific episode, the whole Central C and Madeline Argy thing is going on. I know this is pop culture, not what this podcast is about, but I have to talk about it because if you are on the same boat as me and you kind of found out about this through Madeline's like TikTok videos and you're as invested as I am, you will probably also be waiting for her to just freaking drop this new episode where she's supposed to be talking about this whole situation with Central C on her podcast, Pretty Lonesome. I have been refreshing Spotify for like 3 days because she said that it would drop 3 days ago. And guess what? It's still not here. So it's giving me sus vibes. I'm like, is this whole thing a PR stunt? Did you play us as well? Or did her PR manager, like media manager, suddenly just be like, yo, wait, let's talk this out with Central C's people and like, let's figure it out before you completely blast them online. I don't know, but something is going on. The podcast episode is not out, and I am on the edge of my seat for this little juicy hot goss in the pop culture world. It's crazy that this is just episode 2 of this podcast because I feel like I've been thinking about this for so long and like drumming up ideas in my head and in Notion for so long that it feels like I should have more episodes out already. But here we are, episode 2 of Feel Good Lab, the podcast where we explore the intersection between personal growth and career success and everything that really happens in between. I wanted to include that because I don't want to just pigeonhole myself into talking about mental health and personal growth or career success and career growth. There's so much that happens in our lives between that. And so I want to have conversations about those things as well. But intersection between personal growth and career growth, like that is a pretty good spectrum in which the topics will fall under that I think works well. You can probably tell I'm still trying to figure all of this out slowly as I go. So let's start with the feel-good moment of the week, which is that I just want to preface that if you listen to the first episode first, you'll know that I was very sick with bronchitis just before the filming of that episode. And a couple of weeks have gone by now, actually, since the filming of that episode. I'm trying to create a database of episodes for you guys before I actually release them week by week. But I just got better from being sick from COVID. Yes, I got COVID at an event that I went to with a brand, and it was brutal. I'm still very congested. I don't know if you can hear it. Hopefully not. But man, it's just so funny that the first 2 episodes of this podcast that's called Feel Good Podcast literally just starts with me telling you about the fact that I was sick like a dog. But I just recovered from COVID. Actually, I'm still in the recovery process, really. I tested negative finally like 2 days ago. I was sick for like nearly an entire week and fevering for 5 of those days. So it has been crazy. Also, not the feel-good moment, but the feel-good moment related to that is that if you follow me on social, you'll know that I have a little doggie. Her name is Mika. She is very sweet. She's laying on the ground next to me right now. She has just been an angel of a dog throughout me having COVID. She has a really funny personality for the most part. Like, she is a really good dog. However, she'll have these moments of just pure rebellion and sass, and you can't, like, she's a brat. She is the true definition of a brat. Sometimes she's very selective about when she'll be a brat so that you'll think that she's amazing like 99% of the time. And then the one time she's a brat, you're like, oh, that's fine. It was just like a quick one-time thing. No. She's got your shit figured out. She is out to play you. But during me having COVID, she was an angel. I was on bed rest for probably like 5 straight days, pretty much spending all of my time either on my bed or on my couch. And the only times I would defer from that schedule is to feed her, let her out. I couldn't even really go for walks. Like, I was fevering. Also, I didn't want to get anyone sick in my neighborhood. And she just laid next to me that entire time. Like, other than me feeding her, me making sure that I was eating something so that I can sustain my life, or letting her out in the backyard, she laid next to me the entire time, didn't complain, didn't whine, didn't bark at the sounds outside. She just slept with me for like 5 straight days, and I felt so bad because the weather has been really, really nice lately, and she can see that in the window. And when she sees that it's sunny outside, she gets restless because she knows that we're going to have a major park day. And I wasn't able to give her those park days, and she did not complain about it at all. She would just get up when I wake up, come check on me, give me little kisses. It was the best. It was like she knew what to do to kind of take care of me while I was sick. This actually ties in with this week's episode because I was feeling so shit about myself, even though I really could not have been a better dog mom in that moment because I was fighting for my life. Low key, definitely was fighting for my life. So really, how could I blame myself for not stepping up as a dog mom and like working my way through my feverish state to like take her for a walk or run around at the park or whatever it is? Logically, that doesn't make sense, but that is where my head went. It was like, you are an awful dog mom. You should feel so bad about yourself. How could you just let her spend all her days indoors? You'll sometimes see those guilt trip Instagram reels or TikTok videos that are like, your dog only has 12 summers, don't let them spend it indoors. And all of those reels that I've ever watched rushed back into my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am wasting her life. And that really was the trigger for the desire to make this specific episode on being hard on yourself and your inner critic. Definitely not an unfamiliar topic or situation for me, and I'm sure it isn't for you as well. Again, it's something that I feel like probably everyone has at some point. And if you're that lucky 1% that is really able to be so secure and confident in yourself that you have no negative self-talk within you, like there's no negative inner dialogue that goes on in your head, I freaking salute you. You are what I strive to be. That is amazing. But if you're like me, and probably the majority of the population who does have that negative inner dialogue, even if it's just once in a while, hello, welcome to the club, because this is for you and me. Honestly, I almost feel like I need to put a bit of a disclaimer in here because for the most part, I am somebody who has a ton of faith in herself, like probably too much faith in herself, like blind faith in herself to just accomplish whatever it is that I want to do. I think I've just always been someone who, when I decide that I want something or that I want to achieve something, I've just gotten there somehow. I will do whatever it takes to get to that specific goal or target or whatever it is. And I've been like this for as long as I can remember, but I do also have memories of my parents saying to me that this is the way of life and that if you want something, you have to do whatever it takes to get there. If you are doing it anyways, you should just give it your 100% and be happy about doing it and never approach things with a crappy mood. And maybe it has to do with them drilling all of that into my head since I was a kid. But for as long as I can remember, that's just how I've been. So for the most part, I actually feel like my inner dialogue is pretty positive. At least I've tried to really work on making sure that it is positive. But every once in a while, that voice will just come up out of the blue, and it almost feels like a rude awakening. Where is this voice coming from? It feels like it's like a stranger just intruding on my thoughts, but it'll come in and just say some shit that is incredibly rude to me. It's always so unexpected, and it's always insanely rude. Like, you're a fucking awful dog mom, or you're an overweight piece of shit, nobody likes you, or you have no financial management skills, how do you think you're gonna survive in this world? Really, truly just attacking me on things that maybe I've struggled with in the past and bringing up those old insecurities and shoving it down my throat as far as it can go. Sorry if that's a really vulgar picture, but that is genuinely what it feels like sometimes. Like that inner voice, she be crazy. She really tries to attack me when I'm at my lowest and tries to dig as deep as she can. So while I was still sick, she was coming out and saying stuff like, oh, how could you be resting so many days? You think you're gonna make it in your business if you stop creating content for a week? Oh, you think you can miss a day in your YouTube schedule and still be able to maintain your algorithm? No, everything is gonna fall to shit now. You are not gonna make any money. You are just going to fall behind on all your bills and die in a hole. And I know that it's illogical because I know that those things aren't true, but it's annoying even just having that voice say those things to me because I know that they come from genuine fear, right? Like it's typically about something that I do have some sort of illogical fear about, right? Like not being able to pay rent or not being able to make sure I stay on top of my schedule or that my community will hate me because I didn't release a video that day. Illogical fears, but fears nonetheless. I think though also that fear is just more real right now because I am dependent on my self-employed income and I'm no longer cashing in like a salary paycheck month by month. So it's not like I have sick days and I'll get paid for those sick days. Like I'm not working, so I'm not getting paid. And that in itself is probably something that I need to explore more in therapy. But do you see what I mean? The voice just tackles the things that hurt the most. Beyond just being this really annoying aspect in my life, there's actually some serious consequences that can come from negative self-talk as well, which is why it's something that I feel like it's important to talk about, but also why it's something that I try to actively work on by myself and in therapy. But consequences like increased anxiety, increased stress, worsening your depression if that's something that you already have. It can seriously hinder your progress in life and really hold you back because if you're constantly telling yourself that you can't do something or that you're not capable, then it's going to be so much harder for you to work against that to prove that you can. There's also a ton of indirect consequences as well. So like increased self-sabotage, burnout is definitely high on that list. And even having your physical health be impacted because it has been scientifically proven that your mental health can dictate your physical health. And when you are stressed and anxious and really just carrying the world on your shoulders, your immune system is down. You're just so much more likely to get sick. Your body probably hurts. You carry that stress physically. Like for me, I carry stress physically in my shoulders and in my neck. So right away when I'm stressed, I know it because my shoulders tensen up and I can physically feel the stress tightening up my muscles and cramping them and making them feel heavy. And unfortunately, it's really common for these things to happen, especially because being hard on yourself isn't just like the sole reason that leads to all of these consequences. It's kind of like the catalyst or maybe even like the straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to leading to physical ailments or self-sabotage or burnout. There's other things in your life that are probably already pushing you towards that, and having negative inner dialogue is only going to make that worse. I actually read an article today, which was a book review, I believe, on Games People Play by Eric Berne. Not a book that I've heard of, but I'm kind of interested in reading more now. But the article specifically talks about the 3 different ego states that Eric Burns talks about in this book. And what ego states are just different roles that we play or versions of us that come out depending on what the situation is. So this book specifically states 3 different ego states, which is the child, the parent, and the adult. The child is that version of you that reacts emotionally to situations without giving much thought and consideration. Then there's the parent, which acts like a parent. And then there's the adult, which is the version of you that's able to consider a situation objectively and make decisions to push you forward based on that. And that actually reminded me of something my therapist had told me about before, which I believe is called the IFS model. Yes, Internal Family Systems Model, which essentially talks about the theory that it's natural for your brain to create these like subdivisions or like sub personalities within yourself. And by identifying those specific parts or personalities, you can kind of help to address situations more deeply. So when I say hello from me and my personalities, I am not kidding. So in IFS, there's also 3 sub personalities or versions of you that come into play. There is the exile, also known as the inner child, and really that's the young parts of you that have experienced trauma. And when you experience trauma as a child, or honestly at any point of your life, anytime that you experience trauma, it leaves a little bookmark at you at that age, and it becomes this unresolved issue and version of you if you never address it. So that is the inner child / the exile. Then there is the manager, which is the part of you that helps you run your day to day. So it's helping you compartmentalize, making sure that you are able to get through your day, be productive, do the things, and it can be really controlling also. And the methods that the manager version of you use to get you through your day to day may not also be the healthiest or most productive, but it's just trying to do its job, trying to manage you and making sure that you get through your life. And then there are the firefighters, which are the parts that react when exiles are activated in order to extinguish those feelings. So both the manager and the firefighter really share the same goal, and it's to make sure that the exile version of you, or like your inner child, does not get activated and that you are not ever going to re-experience that trauma. So when a firefighter or when a manager feels like you might be getting hurt or experiencing any part of that trauma again, they will jump into action and do whatever it takes for you to avoid that. So the manager comes in and controls, and the firefighter typically will have more dramatic actions like self-sabotage or numbing with alcohol or something just a little bit more drastic like that. The reason I bring this up is because I actually think that this is a really clever model to use when addressing your negative inner dialogue. So either the 3 ego states or the IFS model, I think both would work in similar ways, but essentially by identifying these different parts and versions of you who are controlling different aspects of your life, you can kind of start to rewire your brain and start to really address the more deeply rooted issue of what your negative self-talk is talking about. So for example, me telling myself that I am not a good dog mom, well, where is that really coming from? It's probably stemming from the fear that I don't have what it takes to take care of another living being, because am I even taking care of myself that well? And it definitely comes from everyone who has ever told me that I can't do something and has made me feel a little bit worthless just because I am sick. So much like how they would use IFS in therapy, you are assessing which part of you is being protected, what it's protecting, and who is doing the protecting. So it's probably protecting my inner child and some of the unfortunate things that have been said to me over the years that really caused a lot of self-doubt. And then who is doing the protecting? It's probably the manager who is like, hey, you need to address these things, otherwise you are going to be proving them right. And of course, the why. Why are you talking to yourself like this? Why do you think you're a bad dog mom? Does it actually have anything to do with your capabilities as a dog mom, or are you just having self-doubt because you never resolved some of these beliefs that other people have instilled in you since you were a child? So assess those protective parts and find a way to essentially work with them. One thing that I did try early on in therapy was actually having a conversation with that protective version of you. Like literally developing a talking relationship with myself and starting that dialogue to be able to, how would I describe it? It's like I'm challenging myself and challenging those negative beliefs of myself to show myself how illogical it really is, or to let the protective versions of me know, hey, I'm good. I'm resolving those issues as of right now, and that you don't need to protect me in that way anymore. So I would literally sit there and close my eyes and imagine myself talking to like the manager version of me or the firefighter version of me and saying to her, hey, I know we're just trying to protect that little baby version of me. And yes, she did need a lot of protecting when she was actually going through these traumatic scenarios in her life. But now, as an adult, here are our stronger and better self-belief systems and words that we use when we talk to ourselves. Let's not stray away from that. I'm good now. I am no longer that version of me. She doesn't need to be protected anymore because I've got her. Like, I'm getting emotional talking about this, but I went through a whole period where I went in and sat with myself to address all of these little broken versions of me and the manager that stands to protect them. And it totally worked. It really did help me address a lot of those awful things that I was saying to myself back then, like on the daily. I know it probably sounds really woo-woo to some of you, especially those people who don't believe in therapy. But even if you don't believe in therapy, like I think maybe we can all try to develop a belief that you should have a conversation with yourself and be able to communicate with yourself, and that self-awareness and level of connection with yourself is actually so important. Yes, I'm sort of just adapting techniques from speech therapy or behavioral therapy into how I actually try to fix my negative self-talk issues, but isn't that the whole point? Like, we just learn from different areas of our lives, from books, from therapy, and use those tools to apply them to our own issues. And of course, if you feel like you're not quite ready to just sit there with yourself and talk to yourself and talk to your inner child, I get that. It's definitely a strange place to be at times. You can journal and talk to yourself that way as well. So write to yourself in a journal or on a piece of paper and try to have that conversation with yourself. Or instead of doing it in a dialogue format, you could even just do it in point form or write it out in sentences or whatever works for you. But just list out, here are the things that I think negatively about myself. Here is why I think I have these thoughts and maybe what the root causes could be. And here is why that doesn't make sense and how I can disprove that negative thought in order to help rewire my brain to not say that to me anymore. Another method that has really worked for me and that I know has worked for a lot of other people because it was developed by Dr. Mark E. Brackett, who is a professor of emotional intelligence and psychology, I think from Yale. Don't quote me on his credentials. I know that he is a PhD doctor though. And I do also know that he has started a program where he teaches kids to have better emotional intelligence skills, EI skills, by using this specific framework. But the framework is called Ruler, and I learned about it from his book, Permission to Feel, which I talked about in the first episode, and I still truly believe, and I will always actually believe, that this is a book that every single human being should read. But anywho, the Ruler framework is an acronym that stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating. And it is a framework that helps you do all of those things with your emotions so that you can become somebody who can deal with, regulate, and utilize your emotions for like positive change in your life. So how it works is you use it like a 5-step program. So first, you need to learn how to recognize your emotions and actually realize in the moment that you are feeling something. And this is going to apply with your negative self-talk as well. It can also apply when you are trying to evaluate the emotions of others. So step 1, recognizing that you're feeling an emotion. Step 2, understanding what that emotion is. So start to comprehend and try to figure out what could be the cause of this emotion. What could the consequences be if you act on this emotion? Start to really build a deeper understanding about what is going on with the situation as a whole. Then you want to label the emotion. And this step is actually so important, because when you are able to accurately label how you are feeling to yourself, either verbally or in a written format, or even just in your head, like mentally, it instantly helps you de-escalate and separate yourself from that emotion. So in the scenario of using this framework for negative self-talk, if in the moment I am telling myself, I cannot succeed at being self-employed, for example, I'll actually take a step back and mentally say to myself, whoa, where did that come from? I am clearly feeling doubt right now, as well as fear. That voice is not mine, and I don't know why you would be unkind for me. And as soon as I take that pause and say those things to myself, suddenly I know that that voice isn't mine, and I have created this distance, and it's enough distance that actually makes me not directly feel the impacts of saying those things to myself. Does that make sense? You're pretty much physically, well, not physically, but you are creating space between you and whatever it is that you're feeling so that you can see it and understand it more clearly. And then once you've actually created that space by effectively labeling it, then you can go about appropriately expressing that emotion in the healthiest way possible. So whether that be telling somebody about it, writing about it, addressing it with yourself, and working through it in your head, whatever the method or action or format is, just figuring out the healthiest way that you can express and deal with that emotion. And then finally, you can work on regulating that emotion. So developing strategies with yourself to be able to catch it earlier next time and catch it sooner and be able to manage and cope with that emotion, with it having less and less impact on you the next time you actually come across it. I know I'm going through this quickly, and it's something that's definitely a lot easier said than done, but that framework has helped me not only be able to cope with my emotions better, but really it has helped with all the shitty things that I say to myself, because when I'm actually able to recognize it, understand it, label it, express it healthily, and then regulate those emotions that are around whatever shitty thing it is that I'm saying to myself, it makes it a lot harder for it to be a repeat offense and for me to say those things to myself again and again. Sometimes I think about how absolutely crazy our brains are and how we're just constantly creating these issues for ourselves out of thin air. And then because we've created those issues, we then have to do some major cognitive reframing and develop strategies to help us undo the mess that we've created. Why? Why do brains work like this? If it's so easy for me to create that issue for myself in the first place, why is it so hard for me to uncreate that issue? It's nuts. It's so wild. I'm obviously not perfect, and I just know that this is going to be another one of those things that is going to be a lifelong journey, and I can work on it and work on it and work on it, but the next time something traumatic happens and it creates a little split in my trauma or inner child version of me, it's going to have to be revisited and worked on again and again and again. But thus is life. That is just the journey that we all have to go through. And I think what's important is that we actually learn some healthy techniques and strategies to help us work through some of these things that really are just a big hindrance in our progress towards just a better life. If you are watching or listening to this episode somewhere where you can leave a comment, let's do a little exercise together. I want you to comment and let me know the last time that you had a negative thought to yourself. And if you feel comfortable, tell me what that thought is. And then I want you to tell me what is the next actionable step that you are going to take in order to unlearn that behavior or prove to yourself that that negative thing isn't true. I could sit here and yap about all of the different things that I learned in therapy or read in books or have tried or have not tried in my life, because I'm a yapper and I love to talk to you. But the point of these podcasts really is to make sure that you also have these tools to be able to improve in these areas of your life. So let's figure out together what that actionable step is that you want to try to fix this issue. And we're going to try to keep each other accountable so that we can continue to grow together. Thank you for being here and joining me today. In the next episode, we're actually going to be having our first guest. We're going to be talking to a friend of mine who also works in tech, in product marketing, and we're going to deep dive on her career journey and what she's learned along the way. If you have suggestions on topics you want to listen to in future episodes, leave them in the comments or email me at hello@coffeeswithangel.com. But that concludes today's episode. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are in the world that you're tuning in from, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.